The 911 call came in at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon in March 2015. The dispatcher heard what sounded like a child's voice, breathing but not speaking. Then the line went dead. Officers arrived at the modest ranch house on Salmon Creek Court in Pasco, Washington, 14 minutes later, expecting a pocket dial or a confused kid playing with a phone. What they found inside would haunt them for years. The front door was unlocked. Inside, two young boys sat on a couch in the living room, silent, staring at nothing. The television was on. Cartoons, bright colors, cheerful music. One of the boys, 8 years old, looked up at the officers and said 5 words that made no sense at the time. Mommy said she was tired. In the bedroom at the end of the hall, 36-year-old Rhonda Carlson lay face down on the floor. The medical examiner would later count 17 stab wounds. But here's what stopped the first responders cold. The house was pristine. No signs of forced entry, no ransacking, no struggle anywhere except that one room. And sitting on the kitchen counter, still warm, were 3 plates of mac and cheese, carefully portioned, ready for lunch. The children had been in the house with their mother's body for 6 hours. This is the story of how an ordinary custody dispute became a calculated execution. How a man who coached Little League and volunteered at church planned a murder so methodical that detectives almost missed the one detail that would unravel everything. How a woman's final act of protection, teaching her sons to call 911, became the very thing that exposed her killer. And it took years before anyone realized why he thought he'd gotten away with it. The morning of March 17, 2015, began like hundreds before it. Rhonda Carlson woke at 6:15 a.m. in the small rental house she'd moved into 8 months earlier, after her divorce from David Carlson was finalized. She made coffee in the same chipped mug she'd had since college. She packed lunches for her 2 sons, 8-year-old Jacob and 6-year-old Michael, turkey sandwiches cut into triangles because Michael wouldn't eat them any other way. Her phone records show she texted her sister at 7:42 a.m., got the boys off to school, dealing with lawyer stuff later but feeling good. The boys rode the bus that morning. Rhonda watched from the front window, waving until it turned the corner, just like always. She had a morning shift at the credit union where she worked as a teller. Co-workers would later say she seemed normal, maybe a little quiet, but Rhonda had been quiet since the divorce. She ate lunch at her desk, a salad from home, a Diet Coke, an apple she didn't finish. She clocked out at 1:30 p.m. and drove straight to the elementary school to pick up the boys early for a dentist appointment that had been scheduled for weeks. The dentist's office confirmed they arrived at 2:05 p.m. Both boys got clean checkups. Rhonda scheduled their next visit for September. She paid with a credit card that showed no unusual activity, no cash withdrawals, nothing that suggested she knew what was coming. They stopped at a gas station on the way home. Security footage shows Rhonda pumping gas while the boys stayed in the car. She went inside, bought a pack of gum and a bottle of water. The timestamp reads 2:31 p.m. In the video, she's wearing jeans and a green sweater. She's smiling at something the cashier says. She looks like every other parent running errands on a Tuesday afternoon. They pulled into the driveway at 2:39 p.m., according to neighbors who saw them arrive. Sometime in the next 8 minutes, Rhonda Carlson started making lunch for her sons. No one knew this would be the last normal moment. At 2:47 p.m., the 911 system registered an incomplete call from Rhonda's cell phone. The dispatcher could hear breathing, ambient noise, but no voice. The call lasted 11 seconds before disconnecting. The protocol required a callback. The dispatcher tried 3 times. No answer. At 2:48 p.m., a second 911 call came from the same number. This time, a child's voice said, "My mom needs help," then silence. Not a hang-up, the line stayed open, but the child had dropped or put down the phone. The dispatcher could hear a television in the background. She stayed on the line, calling out, asking if anyone could hear her. For 3 minutes, nothing. Then, faintly, another child's voice, "Jacob, what do we do?" The dispatcher sent patrol cars immediately. When officers Ryan Martinez and Jennifer Wu arrived at 3:01 p.m., the front door was ajar. They announced themselves, no response. They entered with weapons drawn, clearing room by room, standard procedure for a welfare check with an open line and children's voices. The living room appeared untouched. 2 backpacks by the door, shoes lined up neatly, the TV playing PBS Kids, and on the couch, 2 small boys in matching blue shirts from their school, sitting perfectly still, hands folded in their laps like they were waiting for permission to move. Officer Martinez knelt down to their eye level. "Are you guys okay? Where's your mom?" Jacob, the older boy, pointed down the hallway without looking. "She's sleeping. She said she was really tired." Officer Wu walked toward the bedrooms. The bathroom door was open, empty. The boys' bedroom door was open, toys scattered, but no one inside. The master bedroom door was closed. She opened it. The smell hit first, then she saw the blood, then she saw Rhonda. She backed out immediately, calling for her partner, calling for backup, her training kicking in even as her stomach turned. Martinez got the boys outside, sat them on the front lawn, radioed an ambulance even though he already knew. Neighbors started emerging from their houses, faces confused, then horrified. Homicide detectives arrived within 20 minutes. The lead investigator, Detective Sarah Chen, had worked violent crimes for 11 years. She'd seen stabbings before, crimes of passion, rage, chaos, overturned furniture, blood spatter on walls, signs of a fight. This wasn't that. Rhonda's bedroom looked like someone had cleaned around the body. The bed was made, clothes were folded on a chair, a load of laundry sat in a basket fresh from the dryer. The only disturbance was Rhonda herself, lying face down between the bed and the dresser, blood pooled beneath her, 17 stab wounds to her chest and back. But here's what stopped the first responders cold. The house was pristine. No signs of forced entry, no ransacking, no struggle anywhere except that one room. And sitting on the kitchen counter, still warm, were 3 plates of mac and cheese, carefully portioned, ready for lunch. The children had been in the house with their mother's body for 6 hours. The first theory seemed obvious: an intruder, someone who broke in while Rhonda was home alone, attacked her and fled before the children came home from school. Except the children had been with her. They'd gone to the dentist together. They'd come home together. The second theory, the children witnessed something and were too traumatized to say. But forensic analysis of the blood spatter and lividity patterns showed Rhonda had been dead for at least 4 to 5 hours by the time police arrived. That meant she died around 2:45 p.m., right when the first 911 call was made. The children told child services they'd been in the living room watching TV when they heard a loud noise from their mom's room, then nothing. Detective Chen pulled the 911 recordings. The first call, 11 seconds of breathing and ambient noise, didn't match either child's voice. It was too steady, too controlled. An adult made that call. The second call, 3 minutes later, was definitely Jacob, using his mother's phone which had been left in the living room. But if Rhonda made the first call, she would have said something, unless she couldn't. Investigators canvassed the neighborhood. No one saw anyone enter or leave the house between 2:39 p.m. when Rhonda arrived home and 3:01 p.m. when police arrived. No suspicious vehicles, no strangers walking the street. The house backed up to a greenbelt, wooded area where someone could theoretically approach unseen, but there were no footprints, no disturbed vegetation, no evidence anyone had come that way. Forensics found no signs of forced entry. Every window was locked from the inside. The front door had been unlocked but showed no scratches, no tampering. Whoever killed Rhonda Carlson either walked through an open door or had a key. That narrowed the suspect pool considerably, until investigators noticed something strange. In the kitchen, on the counter, sat 3 plates of macaroni and cheese. Still in the pot on the stove, more mac and cheese, enough for 3 servings, carefully prepared. The stove had been turned off, but the burner was still warm when police arrived. Rhonda had been making lunch for her children when she died. But here's what didn't fit. There was a 4th plate, not on the counter with the others. It was in the sink, rinsed clean but not put in the dishwasher. A single fork beside it, also rinsed. Someone had eaten in that house. Someone had used a plate, eaten a meal, washed their dish, and then left. Or stayed. Chen's team pulled fingerprints from everything. The plates, the pot, the doorknobs, every surface. Most matched Rhonda or the children, but on the back door handle, the door that led from the kitchen to the small backyard, they found a partial print that didn't match anyone who lived in the house. It matched David Carlson, Rhonda's ex-husband. When investigators ran David's name through their system, a different picture began to emerge. The divorce had been contentious. Rhonda had filed for a restraining order 8 months earlier, claiming David had threatened her during an argument about custody. The order had been granted, then modified to allow supervised visitation with the children every other weekend. David had fought it, hired an expensive attorney, and argued that Rhonda was being vindictive, poisoning the children against him. Friends told police that David had become obsessed with getting full custody. He'd shown up at Rhonda's workplace unannounced. He'd driven past her house at odd hours. Rhonda had documented everything, kept a journal of every incident, every violation of the custody agreement, building a case to further restrict his access. 2 weeks before her death, Rhonda had filed a motion to terminate David's visitation rights entirely. The hearing was scheduled for March 25th, 8 days after she died. David Carlson had a motive. David Carlson had an opportunity, and David Carlson's fingerprint was on the door. Here's what no one expected. When detectives brought David in for questioning, he had an alibi. David Carlson worked as a regional manager for a medical supply company. On March 17th, he told investigators he'd been in Seattle for a company training seminar from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. He provided the seminar schedule, names of colleagues who'd seen him there, even a receipt from lunch at a restaurant near the conference center, time-stamped 12:47 p.m. Seattle was 227 miles from Pasco, a 4-hour drive minimum. There was no way he could have been at Rhonda's house at 2:45 p.m. and at a seminar in Seattle. Except Detective Chen kept digging. She pulled David's credit card records. The lunch receipt was real, but his Easy Pass transponder, which tracked every toll booth crossing, showed something interesting. His car had gone through a toll plaza on I-90 eastbound at 11:23 a.m., heading away from Seattle toward Pasco. And it had gone through the same plaza westbound at 4:02 p.m., heading back to Seattle. David's colleagues confirmed he'd been in the morning session of the seminar from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., but when they broke for lunch, David had left. Several people remembered because he'd seemed agitated and said he had a personal emergency to deal with. They assumed he'd left for the day, but he'd come back. At 4:30 p.m., David had reappeared at the seminar location, apologizing, saying the emergency had been resolved. He'd stayed for the final session, made small talk, acted completely normal. He'd even gone to dinner with colleagues afterward. Chen did the math. Leave Seattle at 11:15 a.m., arrive in Pasco by 2:30 p.m., commit the murder at 2:45 p.m., leave immediately, back in Seattle at 4:30 p.m. It was tight, but possible. That detail wasn't supposed to be there. Search warrants were executed on David's apartment, his car, his storage unit. Investigators found his clothes from March 17th, washed, but luminol testing revealed trace amounts of blood in the fibers of a shirt that had been in his hamper. The blood type matched Rhonda's. They found his phone records. David had called Rhonda's cell 17 times in the 2 days before her death. She hadn't answered any of them. But on March 17th at 1:52 p.m., 30 minutes before she died, there was a text from David to Rhonda. "We need to talk about the hearing. I'm coming over." Rhonda never responded. Neighbors were re-interviewed with this new timeline in mind. One woman, Mrs. Patricia Elwood, who lived 3 houses down, remembered seeing a dark-colored sedan parked on the street around 2:30 p.m. She hadn't thought much of it at the time. People parked on their street all the time, but she remembered because the car was running, idling like someone was waiting for something. She'd glanced out her window later, and it was gone. David Carlson drove a dark blue Honda Accord. Cell tower records placed David's phone in Pasco at 2:41 p.m. The phone had pinged off a tower less than half a mile from Rhonda's house. Then, at 2:53 p.m., the phone pinged off a tower on I-90 heading north out of town. The evidence was circumstantial but mounting. Blood in his clothes, his fingerprint on the door, his car on the toll road, his phone near the scene. But prosecutors needed more. They needed to prove he'd been inside that house. They needed to explain the plate in the sink.
Then, forensic analysts found something in the garbage disposal. This is where everything changes. Trapped in the rubber seal of the garbage disposal were microscopic fibers, threads from a cloth napkin. DNA analysis of residue on those fibers revealed saliva. Not Rhonda's, not the children's, David Carlson's. He hadn't just been in the house, he'd eaten there. He'd sat in Rhonda's kitchen, used her dishes, ate a meal she'd prepared, and then murdered her. The psychological profile began to take shape. David hadn't broken in. Rhonda had let him in, likely because he'd convinced her they needed to talk about the custody hearing, about the children. She'd been making lunch for the boys. Maybe she'd offered him food to keep things civil, to avoid a confrontation in front of the children. Or maybe David had helped himself. Either way, he'd eaten. Then he'd waited, and when the moment was right, when Rhonda's back was turned, when she was vulnerable, he attacked. The medical examiner's report revealed the pattern of wounds. The first stab was to her back, between the shoulder blades, delivered with enough force to puncture a lung. Rhonda would have collapsed immediately, unable to scream, struggling to breathe. The other 16 wounds came after, a frenzy of rage and panic. But here's the detail that made it premeditated. The murder weapon was never found. David had brought it with him and taken it with him when he left. That wasn't a crime of passion, that was planning. Investigators believed Rhonda had managed to grab her phone as she collapsed, had hit the emergency call button in her final moments before losing consciousness. That first 911 call, 11 seconds of breathing, was her dying attempt to get help. The children, watching television in the living room, had heard a noise but hadn't understood. They'd waited for their mom to come out. When she didn't, Jacob had found the phone on the bedroom floor and called 911 again, repeating what his mother had taught him. "My mom needs help." David was gone by then, already on the highway back to Seattle, believing he'd created an unbreakable alibi. And once they saw it, they couldn't unsee it. David Carlson was arrested on April 2, 2015, 16 days after Rhonda's death. He maintained his innocence, claimed the evidence was planted, that his ex-wife's family was conspiring against him. His defense attorney argued that the timeline was impossible, that the forensic evidence was contaminated, that David had been framed. The trial began in February 2016. It lasted 3 weeks. Prosecutors presented the toll records, the cell tower data, the blood evidence, the DNA from the garbage disposal. They called the neighbors who'd seen the dark sedan. They played the 911 recordings in open court, Rhonda's final seconds, then her 8-year-old son's frightened voice asking for help. David's defense called their own timeline experts, tried to argue he couldn't have made the drive in time, that the traffic alone would have made it impossible. But prosecutors showed that on March 17, 2015, traffic had been unusually light. Road conditions were clear. Every minute was accounted for.
David Carlson was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. The judge, in her sentencing remarks, noted the calculated cruelty of the crime. That David had murdered his children's mother while they waited in the next room, had left them alone with her body, and had traumatized them in ways that would never fully heal. The children, Jacob and Michael, went to live with Rhonda's sister. They underwent years of therapy. Court documents sealed their testimonies, protected their identities. But in victim impact statements read at sentencing, their aunt described children who woke from nightmares, who flinched at sudden noises, who asked why their daddy hurt their mommy. Rhonda's family created a foundation in her name to support children affected by domestic violence. They lobbied for stricter enforcement of restraining orders, for better tracking of custody dispute cases where threats had been made. But none of it brought Rhonda back. Nothing went back to the way it was. In the years since, legal analysts and true crime researchers have studied the Carlson case as an example of how custody battles can escalate into murder, how warning signs were present but not acted upon, how a man who appeared normal, who coached his son's soccer team, who had no criminal record, could meticulously plan and execute a killing. The detail that continues to haunt investigators is the plate in the sink. The image of David Carlson sitting in that kitchen, eating macaroni and cheese, knowing what he was about to do. The cold calculation required rinsing your dish, wiping it clean, placing it in the sink, and then walking down the hallway to murder the mother of your children.
Psychologists who evaluated David after his arrest noted his complete lack of remorse. He never confessed, never showed emotion about Rhonda's death. His only concern, even years into his prison sentence, was that he'd been wrongly convicted, that he deserved another trial. But the evidence didn't lie. The toll records, the cell towers, the DNA, the timeline that proved he'd left a business seminar, driven 4 hours round trip, committed murder, and returned to maintain his alibi. If one moment had gone differently, if Rhonda hadn't let him in, if a neighbor had seen him more clearly, if traffic had been heavier and he'd run out of time, this story wouldn't exist. Jacob and Michael would still have their mother. David would still be a regional manager, coaching Little League, living an ordinary life. Instead, 2 boys grew up without either parent. A woman who did everything right, who left an abusive marriage, who documented threats, who sought legal protection, was still murdered in her own home while making lunch for her children. The system that was supposed to protect her gave her ex-husband unsupervised hours and proximity. The restraining order that should have kept him away had been modified, loosened, deemed unnecessary by a judge who believed David's promises to behave. Rhonda Carlson knew she was in danger. Her journal, entered as evidence during trial, documented her fear. On March 10th, 1 week before her death, she'd written, "David called again today, said I would regret trying to keep him from his sons. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm scared, but I can't let him see that." She'd contacted her attorney. She'd filed the motion to terminate visitation. She'd done everything the system told her to do. It wasn't enough. Do you think justice was truly served?